Last year I studied at the University of Geneva on my year abroad, and I chose to go to Geneva firstly for some academic reasons, as I really wanted to progress my language skills with some experience in French, and also as Geneva's such an interesting and diverse city with things like the centre of a lot of current affairs and the location of the UN and World Trade Organization. And as I was studying politics and international studies there, it gave me a great opportunity to put this on my CV and also incorporate these skills into a real world setting and for the future. I also chose to go to Geneva as I partly regretted not going on a gap year but prior to university, and it provided me the opportunity to study in a different environment and overseas outside of Durham before I was thrown into the real world, into an office, and for that reason I really wanted to take on a year abroad. And also I'm really passionate about skiing, and I particularly chose Geneva over other cities, especially other European cities, as it gave me the opportunity to ski on weekends and outside of my studies. And for that reason, the extracurricular opportunities from Geneva were great. For me, at Geneva, there was only one place for the entire university, so it was quite competitive. But for some, depending on what degree you take, some institutions offer places for certain degrees, so therefore you have a much higher chance of getting in. And some institutions, such as ones in Germany and Sweden, take a lot more students. So therefore, if you really want to go on a year abroad, choose your application by where you think you have a stronger opportunity to get into. You have advisors that help somewhat, but I would say it's somewhat unclear. So go ask those people if you need advice on those things, and they'll help you. But through the forum and the online websites, there is some confusion around where you're allowed to apply and the application process, and I found that a little bit of a struggle. I had a really great time in Geneva, and Switzerland's a beautiful country where I was able to really explore the landscapes and do things like skiing, which I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do in Durham, and therefore the year abroad really provided me with a different opportunity than I would have had previously. And I would say, in that way, when I look at my year abroad, I don't view it from my academic pursuits, but rather the opportunities I had, and that's how I'd recommend to look at the year abroad, as obviously there's an objective there of studying, and therefore there's also a professional objective that you can use it later in your life and in your career, but also it's an opportunity to do something really different and I've never had the experience to do before. Definitely my highlight is the connections I formed. It was great to meet such a diverse group of people, as I've had friends from Australia, North America, loads in Europe, and whilst that might seem daunting, I've also got a lot of friends from the UK, as you meet people from the exchange network, and I've seen these people since I've been back from Geneva, so these are long-lasting friendships that I wouldn't have formed without the year abroad. My best advice is, if you want to do it, apply, do your research, and also my advice would be it is a competitive process, and before you come to Durham you sort of see and go, I want to do a year abroad, but it is a competitive process and you're not guaranteed one. So things like first year grades do matter for this, and how you apply yourself in class. So if you want to enjoy the experience, you do need to apply yourself to other aspects of Durham and really hone in on why you would be a great candidate and why you should have that opportunity to go abroad. I probably didn't put enough time into the actual learning aspect of my applications, rather than I sort of chose where I wanted to be as like a city or a location rather than where the best university that suits me is. So for me, as I don't speak good enough French to do modules in French, I had to really choose which modules I was able to do in English, or which ones were within my area of where I was studying. And for me, maybe I wish I knew, I'd looked before more into maybe which university suited my studies more. Although I don't regret that decision, but it may be something that I would recommend looking into. I think the experience has changed me massively. I think it's the most personal growth that I've ever seen in a year from myself. And I think most of it comes down to a maturity aspect, in terms of when when you're forced to be independent and you're forced to work things out by yourself, and you can't rely on a contact. I'm not able to just call up someone if I have a problem with something and I don't know the right numbers to use. You sort of have to work around what's given to you and what's available to you. It really forces you to become mature and try and sort your act out a bit, which maybe in the past I sort of relied on other people's help too much. And for that reason, I think now I'm much more mature and level-headed in a lot of situations. First skill I developed was obviously my language, as everything in Geneva is in French, although they speak a lot of good English, but being forced to speak a different dialect every day really makes those language skills grow exponentially compared to what they would just through learning in class, and also the ability to take language classes overseas. I didn't, but I know a lot of people who that helped really progress their language skills, and that could be seen as a big benefit or a drive for why people might want to go to a place where they can study a different language. Also, I was forced to, in an academic setting, learn how to work with people who also I didn't necessarily know that well and were from different cultures, as in like English might not be their first language, or I had to communicate in a different way. So it really helped my professional collaborative skills rather than just my bonding and things like that. So in that way it helped. And also from the aspects of learning, most of my learning was on politics and sort of international studies, and I studied geography usually. So it was definitely a shift in I had to change and alter my mindset and how I went about that work differently. But it was a great opportunity to learn stuff that's within the same realm of social sciences. It makes you super adaptable. You have to adapt around a different culture, different people, a lot of different aspects of life. And I think this is something that's really useful for future careers that you can mention as well, that they want people who are able to work around these situations. When you look at working from home or working abroad and traveling, things like that, adaptability is a really crucial skill that I feel like people who haven't experienced a year abroad might not have the same understanding of it. And building on the personal skills, I think that, as I sort of mentioned, like that maturity level, but that ability to be resilient or overcome stress, as you're going to find on a year abroad, where there's a lot more challenges and things to tackle than you'd find in Durham, is something that will really translate to when you're in further education or in a job where there's obviously going to be things that you're going to need to overcome. And knowing that you've been able to overcome that in the past in quite a stressful situation is something that I definitely think translates well to the workplace. I wish I knew a little bit more about how Switzerland goes about things before I came, as I really had some issues with finding accommodation, bank accounts that are quite strict on those sort of things, and not very welcoming to foreigners in that aspect. And it caused quite a lot of challenges that, as I said, I had to navigate independently, and it caused quite a lot of stress that wasn't really related to my year abroad, but rather like administrative stuff that Durham can't help you with, but Durham also doesn't let you know that you're going to need to deal with that stuff. So therefore, if you're looking at going to one of these places or you've had an offer from one of these places, I'd really recommend spending the time to do some proper research into the administrative aspect of it before you come, because it will just save you a lot of hassle and unnecessary stress.